Hello and welcome to the Sky Blue Times YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about the match against Brighton and then the disappointing draw 1-1 off the back of the 1-1 draw against Chelsea and then the 0-0 draw against Sunderland. City now dropped 6 points in those last three games. Chance for Arsenal to go, I think it's 8 points clear with a win against Liverpool this evening. I think just off the top when we're talking about title race, things can change very quickly if Arsenal lose tonight against Liverpool. And then suddenly that gap becomes something that we felt has been reasonable for a long time. I don't think there's kind of any point getting into those sort of things just now. I think really you should be looking at the team needs to do better, needs to perform better, needs to get the win over the line. I think there's a lot about the performance that was good in a lot of areas of the pitch. I think there was performances that were not so good. Somebody like Nico Gonzalez is probably the worst performance I've seen from him all season. Just didn't seem to anticipate things quick enough and was always slow to get across. You think about the goal that Brighton scored, slow to get across to support Ake, and then soft in stopping the ball that comes inside for the Brighton player that then able to turn and play the ball across the box to Matoma. So from his perspective, certainly wasn't his very best performance. You look at players like Kusanov, as you got on the screen here, Jeremy Doku to be back and complete a full 90, Max Elaine to come back from Watford and start a Premier League game and perform in the way that he did. Tremendous amount of positives when you're looking at those sort of players. When it comes to taking the chances at the other end of the pitch, as we'll talk on a little bit later, players like Cherki, Haaland, Foden, these are not players that are part of bad recruitment. These are players that everybody would expect to have a lot of chances and to score those said chances. And they didn't in this game. Bernardo Silva, another one off a high turnover, not able to score that chance, not able to get the ball across to Haaland. Later in the game, when Cherki gets that high turnover, he does play the pass to Haaland, and then Haaland doesn't take that chance himself. So we're looking at players that we would expect most of the games this season, when they get the chances, they're going to take them. And in the last three games, they haven't done that. And I think story of those three games is those chances missed. I think you're kind of nitpicking if you're going off in other directions. I think there's certainly lots of good parts in the build-up, in the press, the turnovers. This match against Brighton was the second highest this season for City in a single match for the most turnovers and the most turnovers leading to a shot. One of the fewest number of turnovers that we've given up ourselves as well. So in terms of retaining ball as well as winning the ball high at the pitch, this is among some of the best games by City this season. And when you get those many turnovers, similar to what we saw with Chelsea with the kind of 2v1s, 3v2s, etc., you don't turn those situations into shots. You should make the poor decision. If you're not going to be able to put the ball in the back of net when you have that many chances, when you have those number of situations that are in your favour, then you only have yourself to blame that you weren't able to take them. And that ultimately was the difference in this game. But as I mentioned, I think when you look at Kusanov, Elaine to come back, you look at Semenyo, which is expected to be announced within the next couple of days to do his medical today. That's somebody that's going to come in and be a staple of this City team for the rest of the season on the wing, which we haven't had. When you look at some of the talk, but I've seen people online talking about needing to bring off Bernardo Silva, but to take him off to play not on the right wing, who's coming on? The winger that's injured, or the winger that's injured, or the winger in Semenyo that plenty of people have said that we shouldn't be signing and he shouldn't be coming in. There isn't an option there, right? So yeah, I think it definitely will benefit from the reinforcement of Semenyo. I think players returning, Jeremy Doku, as I mentioned a bit earlier, him being back to fitness, playing a full 90 in this one, starting to be a staple now, again, on that left-hand side, allow other attacking players to rest, to rotate, to sit out games. I think that will bring back the freshness in the decision-making, but still, when you're talking about players that you would rate to be some of the best attacking players in the world, despite obviously Cherki first season or Haaland many years into his City career, Foden the same, you have to take those chances if you consider yourself in that bracket. You don't get to play the tired card all the time, particularly when you want to be considered one of the best players in the world. So yeah, City need to take those chances. But as I mentioned, I think Kusanov, really happy to see him in recovery challenges. Elaine making his debut. If we just move over to some of the setup, again, not really ideal that O'Reilly needed that rest and then you lose somebody that could really support Doku on that left-hand side. So you saw a lot of Nathan Ake making those runs, underlapping into the box. Brighton did a good job with their setup to have Ruta drop deep, come inside, Kadioglu to follow Ake. I think you'd see a lot of Ruta dropping in to then deal with Ake. Kadioglu drops, so then you always have that kind of 2v1 with Jeremy Doku. There's always kind of a 3v2 on that side in favour of Brighton, so it just kind of stifles City in that aspect. Still, Doku did a good job to get past them plenty of times, get into the box, provide crosses, provide passes in cutbacks and so on, but Brighton stifled it fairly well with the setup that they did have. As I mentioned, not ideal having Ake as that left back, Aït-Nouri away at AFCON, O'Reilly needing a rest. And then you've got Elaine Kusanov as that back to Nico in front. Mateus Nunes kind of tucked inside and then would rotate between Bernardo Silva, between who's coming inside, going outside to hold the width. Ryan is a phone in between the lines. Haaland as your striker as always. And yeah, I think Brighton worked fairly hard off the ball to try and stifle City a lot, but still they were able to create plenty of chances across this match. The main kind of thing was how well they were able to limit Jeremy Doku by having all of the bodies over there. And from a City point of view, you would have liked to have seen him try something a little bit different, to try and get a little bit more from him on that left-hand side. When it comes to pressing Brighton, it's something that had to change because Shirky was coming out of the team. In previous games, you see a lot of Erling Haaland over on this right-hand side to push the opposition over to the left and press them there. You have O'Reilly on that left-hand side who can make the jump and win those challenges along the side of the touchline. Somebody like Nathan Ake is not going to be able to make those jumps that kind of distance as well. So then this time we saw more of City pressing over to our right-hand side. Mateus Nunes will make that jump to Kuiper. They'd also try and force a lot of turnovers in the middle with the central press when you've got Reinders, Foden on top of the pivot, Nico Gonzalez there, Silva in a good position tucked inside to jump on any players and put them under pressure. And as I mentioned, City, this was their second highest number of turnovers in a single match this season. I think it's the second most as well for turnovers leading to a shot. So they had plenty of chances. You look at the one with Shirky, the one with Bernardo, and there are others mixed in there as well. Pressing wise, despite the change, and I think there were definitely moments where Brighton were able to find the passes between the lines, particularly in that first half where I think Elaine and a couple others jumped too soon and then opened up the space to get to play in behind. And Kusanov defended really well in those situations. I think Nico a couple times off with his positioning, as I mentioned a bit earlier. But with Elaine, I think that's expected, that those kind of things are not going to be something that's going to hit the ground running coming in as a central defender at a young age, but on the ball, very brave, looking to progress between the lines. And so those kind of mistakes I think you can work on, but those were there in the start of the match. Nico throughout his performance, again, I thought moments where he's got to do a lot better, anticipating and so on. But even within that, as I mentioned, City did have a lot of success with the press. And Brighton are a team that are very good at it, very good at building up and playing through the opposition press under De Zerbi, under Fabian Herzl now. So you're not going to expect to completely kind of dominate that team. They're always going to be able to find some sort of success at some point in that game. But yeah, that's what we saw on that front. But in terms of chances, it was a lot going towards Manchester City. Early in the match, you think Gross's header, the shot that was saved by Kadioglu, those were those kind of like two early chances off the back of City being a little bit poor. In that press, as I mentioned, with Elaine, with Nico Gonzalez and so on, changing the press with Shirky coming out of the team. But after that, more and more chances for Manchester City, as you can see here, all the way up to the penalty that Jeremy Doku does a really good job of winning. And Erling Haaland is able to put away. Same format, same approach, technique, however you want to put it, that we've seen in recent games from him after he had those couple that he missed. Slowing down the run-up just a little bit as he comes over. And then into the second half, I think, obviously, Diego Gomez's chance, that is the best chance of the game. But apart from that, it was the Matoma goal, which, as I mentioned a bit earlier, Nico was very poor coming over to support Ake to stop the ball coming inside. Wasn't able to stop that. Pass comes across to Matoma. Matoma comes inside. I think News is not great in terms of letting him come inside a bit too early. Bernardo goes really tight as well. So instead of being there to block the path inside, Bernardo comes kind of right next to Mateus Nunes, so not good from him either. And then once Matoma then comes inside, I think it's Nico coming over to make the block, just straight through his legs. So all of those, Nico, Bernardo Silva, Mateus Nunes, all have to do better absolutely in that goal. The chance for Gomez as well is a long ball over the top that Mateus Nunes gets a little bit too under in trying to win the aerial duel. Again, poor from him in that aspect. But apart from that, Manchester City had finished the game with lots of chances. And really, between Erling Haaland, between Ryan Shirky, they needed to take one of those chances. Foden had opportunities. Obviously, Bernardo had that opportunity. The turnover I mentioned as well a little bit earlier in the video that hits the woodwork. He has to do better in that one to make it 2-0 before Brighton get it, or to get that 2-1 lead towards the end of the match. And I think if they were able to get their chance, that would have been the winner, whether it was Shirky, whether it was Haaland towards the kind of the final 15-20 minutes of the game. You did see changes as well. Rodri coming on, I think it's 63rd minute for Nico Gonzalez. So good to have those two back and then have the rotation between the two. Nico, as I mentioned, poor, but I don't think Rodri was likely in a position to start this match off the back of playing the 490 against Chelsea. So we'll probably see Rodri come in probably for a little bit in the FA Cup game, or we might see more of a kind of split between him and Nico in that one. But both, I think, need the minutes to kind of get the rust off back from a longer injury with Rodri, but also that knock from Nico. And I think going forward, you will see that kind of approach where one starts and then one is the option on the bench to either rotate when you're talking about 60-30 split. If somebody gets injured, if somebody's a bit tired, needs to come off. And then also rotate across games. So Rodri starting one, Nico can start the other. And then last of all, you need that option on the bench late in the game where you get to 70th, 80th minute, you've got a lead, you want to see out the game, just control it. You have the option to bring on a Rodri and Nico for 10-20 minutes. That's very useful rather than starting the two of them and not having the option to come off the bench. But yeah, as I've said throughout the video, City has to take those chances. Haaland and Shirky, endless amount of chances towards the end of the game. Good chances in a great position inside the box. Weren't able to take any of them. And it was kind of weird watching it. You'd see one chance and you'd be like, that was the chance that they needed to take. And then a couple of minutes later, another one comes around. Then a couple of minutes later, another one comes around. And yeah, there was just endless amount of great chances for them towards the end of the match that they needed to put away and win this game. But same problem we saw against Chelsea, against Sunderland. These are the players that you would expect to do better, to take those chances, and they haven't. I think absolutely there's some fair critique with them being tired, but then when you're looking at the options to rotate earlier in the season, you're talking about players that were injured at the time. You're talking about players that were absolutely underperforming. You think about against the Leverkusen, that was all the rotation players saying, please do not play me again, and taking away all your confidence to rotate and bring in somebody like Savino, like somebody like Oscar Bob. And that's why at the time I spoke about it being a very disappointing match in that regard, because you wanted these guys to step up. So I think, yeah, that's one thing, but really I think you're kind of pulling apart hairs really. Like there's a few games where Guardiola could have rotated better, but I think that's kind of the nature of the performances of some of the players in the squad, particularly in the attacking areas, and that's why somebody like Anton Semenyo is having his medical today, and he's probably going to be a staple of the team for the rest of the season. Scoring a winner against Spurs, that's exactly what we need in the team, and so that's why he's coming in. And then also I think he's going to be big for the team out of possession as well, just to be a lot more solid on that right hand side if he's playing with Doku or playing on that left hand side in place of Jeremy Doku when he's out of the team. But in terms of some of the other player performances, Max Lane, as I mentioned a bit earlier, I thought tremendous debut from him to come in from Watford on loan. Really good experience actually to go there to start under the manager. The manager gets sacked, you're out the team, you work your way back into the team. Watford have a really good run of form. You're central, you're starting 5-6 games in the Championship in a row off the back of good performances and convincing the manager that you need to be in the team. Then comes over to play for City in the Premier League, his Premier League debut, his debut for the club. And on the ball, very brave. 3 out of 4 dribbles successful. Lots of progressive carries, progressive passes, 9 out of 10 long passes, looks for the switches over the top, asking for options in front of him, not forcing bad passes if they're not there, making the defensive actions. I think, as I mentioned earlier in the video, definitely some instances where he could do better defensively in some of the duels, some of the times he's jumping, but for the most part, really good performance, really happy. And I think that shows that he's going to be somebody that's going to start on the weekend, and he's probably going to start in the League Cup match. Kusanov, similar to Elaine, I think, but more so off the ball in those recovery challenges. Really good job from him. Encouraging performance. Need that pace in the team. And again, I think you'll see him at the weekend in the FA Cup and into the League Cup match. Jeremy Doku to come back. You see the impact that he has as a winger in the side, on that left-hand side, taking players on, driving into the box. Most box entries, most progressive carries for the team, making things happen. Yeah, definitely needed him back in the team. And Donnarumma, this was, I think, if we won this game, there'll be more talk about how he was on the ball. This was the most passes he's completed in a single match for Manchester City. I think there were a lot of good moments and showing he's moving in the right direction. I think there were a lot of flick-ons, long balls, where you think Semenyo in those instances with Haaland, that would be a combination that could link up quite well. But yeah, definitely good to see that kind of progression from him in this game. But yeah, those are pretty much kind of like my quick thoughts. I'll do something a little bit more longer on possibly if we sign Gahey, the announcement of Semenyo, and some other stuff coming up later this week in terms of content. But yeah, just a quick one, thoughts on the game and so on. Please let me know down below if you think I've missed out anything. If you have any questions, anything you want to talk about, down in the comments and we can have that discussion. Make sure you like the video to help support the channel. Do let me know down in the comments as well if you've got any content that you want to see that is not just reviews, new signings, etc. If there's something you want to see a video on, please do let me know down below. Otherwise, make sure you subscribe to help support the channel, and we'll be back with plenty more content this week.